Hereby summoned to attend the monthly meeting of the Environment and Regeneration Committee, which will be held a hybrid meeting conducted remotely via WebEx and physically in the Council Chamber in Staban on Wednesday, the 12th of March 2025 at 4 p.m. So we will ask the member attendance apologies, and that'll be Connor. Take us through that.
Thanks, Chair. Alderman Hussey.
Aye.
Alderman Kerrigan.
Yep.
Alderman Julie Middleton.
Here, Connor, online.
Thank you. Councillor Boggs.
And Shaw, Connor.
Councillor John Boyle.
Online, thank you.
Councillor Caitlin Deeney.
Shaw.
Councillor Alec Duffy.
Shaw.
Councillor Sean Fleming.
And Shaw.
Councillor Emma McGinley.
And Shaw, Connor.
Councillor Rory McHugh.
And Shaw.
Councillor Patrick Murphy.
And Shaw.
Councillor Declan Norris. Councillor Martin Riley.
Online,
and Councillor Brian Tierney.
Thank you, Connor. Item 3, broadcasting statement. I would like to remind everyone physically present at this meeting or in attendance remotely that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. This broadcast may be terminated or suspended in accordance with the protocol. Due to your attendance at this meeting, you are consenting to being filmed and to the use and storage of these images for broadcasting or training purposes and for the purpose of keeping historical records and making those records available to the public. Members and approved speakers are reminded to only have their mics and cameras on while speaking at the meeting and to use the chat facility to highlight a request to speak. A copy of the council privacy notice may be found on the council website www.derrystaban.com. Members, item 4 is declaration of members' interest. If anyone wishes to declare at this stage or declare as the item arises. Grand. Item 5. Members is chairperson's business. I have none, so we will keep it moving on. Item 6 then is to receive a presentation on living with water and Derry Londonderry draft plan consultation from DFI, and we have Simon Richardson, Director of Living with Water, and Stuart Whitman, Living with Water Programme Manager, to give the presentation. We usually have 15 minutes of a presentation, and then members will have opportunity to ask any questions with you. So, as I say, we will leave it to yourself. I don't know whether it's Simon or Stuart who's looking to start. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Simon, my name is Simon Richardson, and I'm the Director of the Living with Water programme within the Department for Infrastructure. And my colleague Stuart Whiteman is the programme manager. So, look, could I just thank you for the opportunity to present on the Living with Water and Derry consultation document, which is out for public consultation at the moment. Stuart's going to start to share the presentation now, and I just, as a bit of an intro, look, what we're going to do is just explain what the Living with Water approach is all about. It's about managing the flow of water down through a catchment in our urban areas, explain what we've done so far, how we're going to move forward, and how this is all about collaboration and working together with key stakeholders, particularly yourselves and the council, which we have been doing for quite some years now and very successfully. And just, Chair, just in case I don't get a chance at the end to thank Karen Phillips and her team for all the work that they have done in helping us develop this plan, a draft plan, sorry. Look, the work that they've helped us with has been invaluable to this. So, look, I'm going to ask Stuart to take us through the presentation. We will try and keep to the 15 minutes and then happily take questions at the end. So, Stuart, if I could ask you to.
Yes, thanks, Simon, and thanks, Chair, for the opportunity to update members. Look, I'm going to just sort of follow the layout of the plan, if that's helpful. And you can see here on the slide, you know, we're just going to cover the sort of setting the scene, the case for change. In other words, why are we doing this? The outputs that are in the plan and how we're taking it forward, and then the next steps as regards the consultation and after the consultation. So, in terms of setting the scene, this actually goes back way back to it's actually before 2014, but way back to 2012, 2013, and it sort of started with Belfast, where we had realised it was Northern Ireland Water approached the department and said, look, the scale of investment needed in our wastewater systems and sewage networks in Belfast is such that we couldn't afford to do it through our normal capital programme. You're getting into hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds. So that led to a paper being brought by it was then the DRD, the Department of Regional Development Minister, brought a paper to the executive which recommended that the strategic plan be produced for Belfast. That then led to the Living with Water programme being established. And then out of that work, we also established the need to do a similar plan for Derry. And I think we probably met with a number of members back a few years ago when we were up in the Newly Crescent and so forth, looking at opportunities up there. So we ended up with the Belfast plan being published in 2021, and then we did a vision for Derry, which was the precursor to the draft plan. That vision document was published in 2023 in May, and then we're now obviously consulting on the draft Living with Water plan for Derry. So in terms of the scale of the plan and what it covers, it's quite a significant geographical area. It's split into 4 catchments, and it's a sort of mix of the city itself and the surrounding area. So it's a mix of rural and urban. And obviously we're looking at the sort of issues and pressures right across that whole catchment. So that when I say issues and pressures, that could be things such as flooding, different types of flooding, water quality issues and pollution, and obviously capacity constraints from the sewage system in terms of growth and plans for growth. And we've obviously, the scope of these areas has really been determined from the engagement we've had with stakeholders to date, and really grouping the different issues and pressures. So that's really how we've come up with the plan area. So in terms of the case for change, why are we doing all this? You'll see in the document that it's laid out for obviously for the public. It's laid out hopefully in a fairly straightforward manner for them to follow. We've done a series of graphics, very simplistic graphics, generic graphics in the document, just to explain the sort of the typical drainage infrastructure that we have in the city and the surrounding area, and then the issues and pressures and stuff. So as you can see on the slide here, this is just a tip showing you that like the typical sort of town, and from the top of the catchment down, and the different types of infrastructure that we have. Overview of the current problems. Similarly, you go up to the top of the catchment and you might have runoff in the rural areas. You might have runoff from fields that's causing pollution. You might have flooding in the rural areas. And then as you move down the catchment, you'll get into the urban area, into the city and into the town, and you'll find that there could be issues around surface water flooding, spills from the sewage system into the river and so forth. And then you move down towards the treatment works and right down into the catchments. That would be getting right down into the Foyle estuary. So as I say, we've followed this approach right through the document, and as you can see there, this gives a description of the various types of issues and pressures that we encounter. So what are the key drivers for this? Well, there's 3 key drivers. The first one is protecting the environment, and that's all about protecting from flooding. It's all about the different sources of flooding that we have. Derry is actually one of the 12 significant flood risk areas in Northern Ireland. It's second only to Belfast, and that's what that left-hand slide's taken from. That's a snapshot from the flood risk assessment for Northern Ireland. This slide, the photograph there, I think that was August 2017, the flooding, but I think that's maybe the Strand Road or the Foyle side roundabout there. That's surface water. That's basically water that can't get away. It rains, it's so intense that the sewage systems and the gullies, etc., can't take the water, and we end up with surface water flooding. And that's really one of the biggest challenges we have. We've got fluvial flooding from rivers, but we also have this surface water flooding, and it's getting more of an issue with the more intense rainfall events that we're experiencing. There's different types of flooding. We've also got the fluvial flooding as well, which is, again, this, I think that was August 2017. That's the fluvial, obviously the flooding in the river, and obviously the rivers can burst their banks, and that can be widespread. And then we also have, although it's very localized, we have out of sewer flooding, and that is particularly nasty if that occurs. That's basically that's raw sewage basically coming out in somebody's property, and in Garden ended up probably inside their property. That's just where the sewage network can't cope, and it's basically the manhole is surcharging into somebody's property. So that's the protect. You've then got the enhance, and yeah, sorry for some reason the slideshow's not working there. The enhance there that's showing you debris that's basically caught inside a combined sewer. So this is all about making sure you don't flush inappropriate items. It's a challenge that any water faced. That's basically wet wipes and things that have blocked the sewer. I'll just come here to the slideshow to show you the other photographs there. The other photograph there was, let me see. Excuse me, I just want to show you the other photograph. For some reason it didn't work. Slideshow, start again. So this shows you a river on the right hand side there. This is a grill of a typical river water course. The left hand side shows you that's actually sewage related debris that has basically been washed from the sewer network into the river and has actually blocked that river grill, and that can cause flooding from the river. But it shows you the scale of the problem we're facing in terms of the capacity constraints within our sewage systems. And sewage systems are designed to spill, but they're not designed to spill whenever the sun's shining and whenever it's dry. They're only designed to spill whenever you've got significant levels of rainwater. And as you can see, this it's a particular it's quite sobering photograph there on the left of the amount of debris that we're getting. Onto the third area for driver is growth. And it's well publicised recently, the capacity constraints that we have from the wastewater side of things, whether it be the wastewater treatment works need to be increased in size or the sewage networks need to be increased. The challenge for Northern Ireland Water is they can't accept more connections whilst their systems are spilling and they have unsatisfactory discharges, like the slides I showed you a minute ago. If they're spilling too often into the river, the sewage networks, they can't accept new additional connections until the sewage network has received appropriate upgrades. So that is a challenge right across. It's not unique to Derry. It's obviously a big problem in Belfast, and I think there's over 100 areas in Northern Ireland that are being constrained. So you've probably seen at the committee, there's been a number of discussions at the infrastructure committee about the challenges of how can we release some of these development pressures. So obviously there's big plans in Derry for over 9,000 homes by 2032. So it's going to be a big challenge to make sure that the infrastructure can keep pace with the growth aspirations for the city. So what's the Living with Water approach, and what is it all about? I'm not going to go through this in detail, but really, and again, this is one of these sort of simple graphics. It's really about managing the flow of rainwater through the catchment from the hills right through to the sea, and it's about trying to slow it down. It's a bit like managing traffic. You try to slow it down up at the top of the catchment so it reduces flooding and reduces the pressures on the piped drainage systems downstream. So if it's from a river point of view, it could be actually holding the river back and actually deliberately flooding areas of green space outside the city, above the city. Or if it's from the sewage network, it could be actually trying to slow up the rainwater entering the sewage network. And by doing that there, you can reduce the amount of spills and help reduce pollution, and also ultimately facilitate growth and reduce flooding. So in essence, that's really what it's about. It's about trying to slow and manage the flow of water. We're going to need hard upgrades like to our sewage. We're going to need bigger pipes, and we're going to need upgrades to the treatment works. But alongside that, we want to do more natural approaches like managing rainwater on the surface, doing things like leaky dams just to slow the water up. And as I said, it's quite an innovative approach. It's going to require all the drainage organisations to work together in a more integrated way. So this is just an example of what we used to face. One of the challenges we would have had, if you follow this circle from right to left, the vicious circle, number one there, you would have found a developer approaching Northern Ireland Water to try to get a connection, and they would have been turned down because Northern Ireland Water would have approached roads and rivers in our department, and the rivers would have turned around and said, we can't accept any more discharges into the river. And he ended up with this vicious circle. So really, through Living with Water, we're trying to turn that circle on its head and say, you know what, if we can make space, even through this could be using parks, this could be using green space to let some of the rivers actually provide flood storage in the parks. By doing that there, you can free up capacity in the river downstream, which could enable Northern Ireland Water to discharge more stormwater, which in turn could enable some of the development to proceed. So that's really about trying to turn that circle on its head. It's all about working together in a partnership. This is a slide taken, and we've used this quite a bit. This is a slide taken from Llanelli in Wales, and the reason we keep using it because it's a good way of just summarising what Living with Water is about. This is a swale in a park, and effectively the left-hand side shows you sort of during dry weather. It's effectively a stream, very little water in it. That swale is basically man-made, and it's a bit of landscaping. And effectively, what it's doing, it's collecting all the rain, it's collecting all the surface water from the streets nearby. So that could be the road, the water that falls on the roads and the footpaths. That ends up being diverted into this green space before it goes into the combined sewer network. Now you can see on the right-hand side there, the swale fills up to a certain level before it discharges into the sewer. Now the important thing is it still ends up in the combined sewer, but it ends up being delayed and held back and attenuated. That's really what Living with Water is about. And if you look at the this is a hydrograph which shows you what was observed. The red hydrograph basically just a flow, shows you the flow of the measuring of measuring the flow of water, of rainwater in the sewer. So you can see the red curve is what would have been experienced before this in the sewer before this swale was built. The blue line is actually what was experienced afterwards. The green line is actually what was designed for, what was predicted. So you can see the difference between the red line and the blue line. That's the flow of water. So there's an awful lot of water has evaporated. There's an awful lot of water has went into the ground. And what was left was then discharged into the sewer at a much lower rate. That's basically a bit like managing, as I said, managing traffic. It's about it's about dampening out those peaks and flattening out that profile so that could be enough to stop a spill happening into the river downstream. So that's really what we mean about using natural solutions to try to manage rainwater in a more sustainable way, by managing it on the surface where it falls, preferably managing it at source. So the plan outputs, the plan has been structured into sort of the 4 areas: for West Foyle, East Foyle, Fawn catchment, and the Fawn catchment and the Eglinton catchment, as you can see there on the plan. So each catchment, we've basically looked at the issues and pressures in that catchment, issues and pressures being flooding, flooding issues, the development constraints, and issues with water quality, whether it be sewage spills or wastewater capacity. This diagrammatic illustration here is obviously of the West catchment, and it sort of covers the Penny, Burn and Skeg rivers. We've done a bit of work a couple of years back, and you can see that as we move forward, this is, I'll just jump forward to this slide. This slide here shows you the different types of solutions that we're looking at. Natural flood management, surface water attenuation, trying to restore the floodplain. I think that's up at Glengalia. There's a culvert there there's a river that's culverted. There might be opportunities to dilate that river and actually let it spill out and store in that green space. That could help with flood protection downstream. So I'll just go back so you can see the pressures. You've got CSO spills, you have the capacity constraints, etc. So it's about trying to use a combination of soft approaches like blue-green approaches, as well as hard engineered approaches. That means bigger pipes and upgrades to the Colmer treatment works. So what we've done in the document, we've laid out the issues and pressures in each of the catchments, and then we've come up with proposed solutions as well, and these are laid out as well in the document. And we're obviously seeking, through the consultation, we'll be seeking people's views. Are there any other issues and pressures that we've missed? Or are there any other opportunities like green spaces that we could utilise and make use of to try to store water whenever you do get a heavy rainfall event, for example? So the delivery framework, the projects in the plan will be taken forward. It'll be between really the department and Northern Ireland Water, and they'll obviously have to be taken forward within current budgets. But the most important thing is that the plan, the plan sets out a clear need here for investment. From the department's point of view, it'll be leading on like the blue-green work, and that'll be like nature-based solutions such as sustainable drainage and natural flood management up the catchment. Obviously, the NI Water work would be very much focused on the sewerage networks and any upgrades needed to the likes of Colmer treatment works. There's obviously the various phases of each of the projects, but as I said, it's the pace of delivery will be dictated by the level of funding available. So just to finish sort of in terms of the consultation and the next steps, obviously the consultation was launched in January. It closes on the 7th of April. And there's a when you go online, there's a link that takes you to a place or a website where you can the public can basically provide their views and responses. After the consultation closes, we'll obviously be doing a review of the responses and producing a consultation report, and we'll use that report to inform the final plan. And our aim is to publish the final plan in December, and then we'll be moving to the delivery phase. It's worth maybe saying that we're coming towards the end of a bit of investment cycle for Northern Ireland Water. We're coming to the end of sort of PC21. The next investment cycle is PC20. It was PC27. It's going to be PC28. So it's quite timely in that what's in this plan can help inform the next investment cycle. So that's, I realise we went through quite quickly, and I'm sure you've plenty of questions. So I'll hand it back over to Simon.
Thanks, Stuart. Chair, just we'll finish there. Just I think Stuart's gone through that relatively quickly, so I'm sure there are a few questions and we're happy to take those.
Much appreciated for your presentation. We do thank Councillor Fleming for stepping in. Any questions here? Sorry, Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Stuart and Simon, for attending today online. I'd like to thank, before I start my questions, the previous minister and the current minister for their endeavours on trying to sort this problem out. My question is around, and I don't know if you can answer today, is the H2 site on the Buncrana Road and the need for apparently 2 pumping stations. Is there any update that you could give us today in regard to the pumping stations?
Councillor Murphy, no, unfortunately I can't. That we would need to get some information from our colleagues in NI Water, and I don't have that information to hand, unfortunately. But if that's something you want us to take away, we can endeavour to do so.
Yes, thank you. I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. I have 2 more speakers, Councillor Harkin and Alderman Middleton. Sean.
Here today. Look, I think the consultation is more than welcome, and I would very much be encouraging people to engage with it. And we need to act on our waterways. We need to act on pollution. We need to act in order to be able to link more houses to our sewage system. So the fact that things are such a mess right now, for me, is emblematic of catastrophic failure on behalf of Stormont over many, many years to allow the crisis to become this bad. So it's urgent that we act on this. It's frustrating that the Derry Living for Water plan was belatedly agreed to after the Belfast one, but at least we're here now and actually doing this work. So, but my first question is really about the fact that the Belfast Living with Water plan has been deferred. My understanding now is that that the funding, £1.9 million to do it over a 12-year period, has been deferred, and I was very alarmed at that, because obviously this plan has been worked out well in advance of the Derry plan, and now that plan, which is urgent, because I've looked at the state of Belfast Lock. I mean, obviously that's one of the examples where there needs to be urgent action to clean up the waterways, to make sure that houses can be linked to the sewage system, and they address all sorts of issues around water. But the fact that that is now deferred, won't be getting carried out, gives me great concern about what will happen for Derry, because if we're asking people to engage in this consultation, people want to know that it's going to lead to something, that it's going to lead to action. And it's very clear from the issues at Buncrana Road to the estimated and possible 1 million tonnes of raw sewage that's going into the Foyle every year, and all the other issues around flooding, that we need action. But my concern is, even with this positive consultation, that it could be years before the money becomes available to actually do anything. So what does the deferment of the funding for the Belfast Living for Water programme plan mean for the future of action in Derry? Because I would be worried that this will just get pushed further and further back. And every year of delay means a deteriorating situation. Fewer houses getting connected, more raw sewage in an overwhelmed sewage system going into our waterways, and the potential for flooding happening without the proper protections being in place. So if you're able to answer any of that, it would be very, very helpful. But I do think that it is a cutting-edge issue right now, because to do anything about this, there has to be funding available for it.
Councillor Harkin, thank you. Your question about the Belfast plan and the position that's in it is very relevant, and it's obviously something that, at the same time we're going out to consultation on the Derry plan, but the Belfast plan has undergone a review, and the outcome of that review is that the Belfast plan is still needed. Clear, the work that was identified within that plan, the review stated that the work is still needed. However, the costs, the cost of the Northern Ireland water upgrades, had increased significantly from 1.2 billion to 1.9 billion. Given the budgets that are available to us at the moment and going forward, it was right to state that it was unlikely, or it would not happen, that the Belfast plan could not be delivered within the 12-year time frame that it had initially set out. So the outcome of that review for Belfast was that the plan is still needed. We're not setting the plan aside, but it will have to be taken forward at a scale and a pace that aligns with budgets that are available. Now, unfortunately, in Belfast, you're right to say that as a consequence of that, NI Water have had to stop the major upgrades of the wastewater treatment works that discharge into Belfast Lough. They are carrying forward some of the smaller living with water works around the city. So the headline is obviously the big projects have stopped, been paused. That's not to say that they can't move forward. They've been paused at a point where we have business cases developed, ready to move forward. We know what we want, or NI Water know what they want to deliver, and that's they're ready to take forward. But the money is not available at this point in time. That being said, the living with water approach, i.e. what Stuart had set out of trying to manage the flow of water through a catchment, whether that's in Belfast or whether it's in Derry or whether it's anywhere else, is the right way to manage it. Try and manage it naturally. The living with water approach through natural flood management will not solve all the wastewater treatment works problems and the biological load that needs to be treated in any city. But it does help with those spills, particularly from an environmental point of view, where Stuart had shown slides of the debris coming out of the sewers and ending up in our waterways, which ultimately then end up in Lough Foyle or Belfast Lough, wherever we're looking at. So you're right to highlight the problem. Lots of money is needed to do the hard upgrades that NI Water need to do right across Belfast, Derry, and other places. But as I said at the start, working collaboratively with ourselves, the likes of council, housing executive who have a land bank there that we could use, where we can work together and where schemes are being done, if we can bring in the nature-based solutions that will help slow down the flow, that's a good thing, and it's the right approach. It will not necessarily build a lot more houses because you still need that hard investment, but it's still the right approach, we think. And that's why we don't want to say, because we've had to pause certain elements of the Belfast plan, that we don't then want to move forward with Derry. If we don't keep pushing ahead with this right approach, then it will stall and it will take longer and longer to do. So we think it's the right thing to push forward. And the Minister thinks it's the right thing to push forward with this living with water approach, the nature-based approach, the integrated approach, and that's really what this consultation is about.
Thank you for your response. Alderman Middleton.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me in, and on behalf of the DUP, thank you, Simon and Stuart, for your attendance today and for your informative update of the Living with Water consultation. It's really great to hear the Living with Water approach just put verbally as opposed to reading it or getting our own take on it. So it's great to hear that surmised for us today. It's also nice to hear of the work that has been carried out, as well as your collaborations and your future plans. I represent the Faughn area, and the Faughn area is deeply affected by many different types of flooding, and some of them are very serious indeed. And I work closely with residents daily, weekly, all year round on flooding issues, and particularly when flooding incidents occur. Sadly, many of these residents live in fear when there's rain forecasts, and I just think that's a really not positive experience for our residents, and I'm glad that there is plans to address some of the issues that they're facing. But I just want to put on record today that as I'm sure you well know, it is so imperative that we continue to engage and include the residents who are most affected by the various types of flooding in the consultation and the plans for future work, that we push to get funding to bring this to fruition. And that we see action, and I think that's mostly what the residents want to see. So just a few comments and no questions, you'll be glad to know. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alderman Middleton. Councillor Norris.
Thank you, Chair, for bringing me on. Again, I'd like to thank you on behalf of the SDLP for the presentation. And again, similar to Alderman Middleton, I'm from the Faughan as well, and I actually live in Eglinton. So I'm very aware of the flooding in each time. So, like, firstly, it's about 8 years now, nearly, since the first flooding in Eglinton and in the Faughan area and surrounding areas. It's 2022 was the second one, and we talked about the one in 100 year sort of rainfall, and we're just getting that more and more often. It's only a couple of months ago now that Cloddy flooded in the main street, and it just was bending until the water dissipated. My worry is that we're doing the consultation, but when is the money going to be given? When is the work going to be started? Like in Eglinton, as Julie said, people live in fear every day. Ardmore's no different. Drumahoe's no different, and I've no doubt places in Derry, Strabane, and other places it's the same. But like, I know personally, I'm called all the time. Every time there's a rain shower, like I was actually going to take a photograph of the last time. All the wee pensioner houses in Eglinton, all the housing executive now have given flood barriers and all their doors. Only a few weeks ago, because there was a heavy shower, all the doors were all the flood barriers put on. So it's a daily reminder. And I know Eglinton, the first flood was really rivers. The second flood was ground water and how you're dealing with that. But it is a massive, massive issue and a worry every day. Thank you.
Yeah, if I can come in there, Chair, just a quick response to that.
Yeah,
Thank
go
you,
ahead.
Councillor Norris. Yes, I mean the issue in Eglinton. I mean our colleagues in DFI Rivers are doing a lot of work up there, and they have been working with residents as well, and they will continue to do that. This Living with Water approach is about bringing together those main drainage organisations. You know, the DFI Rivers, NI Water, DFI Roads, all of those organisations who have responsibility for surface water, and rivers who have responsibility for fluvial or for river flooding. So the Living with Water approach is trying to bring all of those parties together, and others like the council say, and housing executive and others, to see if there are integrated solutions. So as you say in Eglinton, one of the first instances might have been river flooding. The second instance might have been surface water flooding. So there's no one solution that can easily solve all the problems in Eglinton. And if there was, it would have been done. So it's a very complex issue, as is the case in many flooding situations. So we have to keep trying and looking for solutions and working together to see if all of the pieces can come together, to see if we can have an integrated approach, and it may be small steps in certain circumstances to take us forward, but it is working together, and that's why we think the Living with Water approach is so important, so that we bring people together and try and build on what other people are doing or what other organisations are doing.
Thank you very much. The last speaker I have here is Councillor Boggs. Bob.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thanks to the team for the deputation. And just, I want to particularly welcome Simon's comments, on progress and the Minister's keen to move forward with the Living with Water programme for Derry. It's very, very important, and I think it highlights kind of, that some are negative when there's no plan, and then they're still negative when there is a plan in front of us. And I think it just needs to be reiterated that we have something in front of us now for Derry, because as said in the name of it, water's not going away. We need to learn to deal with it differently. We need to learn how we can divert it or hold on to it and release it more slowly into the systems that we have while also upgrading them. And I also welcome Simon's clarification as well in relation to the Belfast Living with Water programme and the fact that in spring of this year, work is going to go ahead to maintain some of the existing infrastructure so that there will be improvements made. And I think that shows the resilience of the department to try and move forward with works where it maybe isn't as easy at times, because we know how hamstrung we are with budgets, and that's right across all departments, not just DFI. But I think progressing those things shows that the Minister herself is committed, and that's a positive, I suppose. Just for the question that I have is in relation to Simon, if you can give any more of your assessment on the different approaches that the Minister's taken. So in terms of, you know, additional funding, in terms of new ways of working, in terms of blue and green infrastructure, and also natural drainage, you know, how do you see that as we progress in years, while we see the Living with Water programme for Derry coming to fruition, how do you see those new ways of working playing an even bigger role? Because it's not just about concrete blocks and the hard infrastructure that we've seen before. How do you see those new pieces of infrastructure playing a part in ensuring that Derry and the whole of the north and right across this island learns to live with the water that we are currently grappling with, and not just trying to find a solution that gets rid of it and eradicates it, because that's obviously not going to happen. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, thank you for that. You know, the natural approach, the integrated approach is, I think I said at the start, you know, I've maybe said a few times, it's the right approach. And it's not a new approach. We've tried to do it before, but it's not really the first port of call. You know, if there's flooding somewhere, we look and try and pour concrete to try and fix it. We're trying to change the approach right across the different organisations who have responsibility for drainage and flooding. And this natural approach, the blue-green approach, will help definitely, as Stuart has indicated in his presentation. And I think we need to engage with key players, as I've said before, to make them think about Living with Water approaches being business as usual, not look to concrete first time to solve problems, but maybe look to nature to see if there are any options that way. I think moving forward, I think we also have been successful recently, last week actually, in a bid to the Transformation Fund. And we have received £15 million to pilot schemes which will manage the flow of water in our urban areas in a different way. So we're looking at interventions that we can use in our urban situations, some of them that Stuart had highlighted earlier, similar to Llanelli and Wales. So that is allowing us, that Transformation Fund is allowing us to help transform how we deal with rainwater, both when it's on the surface, and it's better to deal with it when it's on the surface, because at that point it hasn't yet mixed with the sewage in the sewers. Once it gets into the sewers, it mixes with the sewage and then ends up, as Stuart showed in his presentation, where it comes out of the sewer and ends up in someone's house. So natural flood management and sustainable drainage is about trying to deal with the water when it's clean and keeping it clean as best as possible. And the best scenario is to get that into the water course clean. And that's what this new approach is about. And if we can continue to explain to people how it works, and I think more importantly is demonstrate how it works. And I think that's why it's so important to get this pilot project to allow us to go and show people what these things do and point to it. I think that will help us change the approach right across all our towns and cities, not just in Belfast and Derry. So I think that Transformation Fund, which we've just received, hopefully will allow us to do that and actually demonstrate what this is all about.
It's maybe worth, Simon, if I just come in there and mention that, you know, there's a three-pronged approach that the Minister is taking forward, and I think you alluded to it there. That was what, you know, the first of that being obviously trying to get more money from the executive. Obviously, we're one of many departments looking for more money, but the second prong is there's a piece of primary legislation about to be introduced to the Assembly, which is going to provide enabling powers for the department to go off and do basically hopefully make sustainable drainage systems mandatory in all new developments. What we've been talking about today with Living with Water has largely been about retrofitting into our existing urban environment, where going forward we want to make sure the situation doesn't get worse. So we want to make sure that all new developments incorporate softer, greener, more sustainable solutions. So it's not a, this will take a bit of time now to work through this detailed policy and legislation, but that is a big that would be a big win for for us all if we can get to the stage. Now we're talking maybe 2 or 3 years down the line before the legislation's done and the policy's done, but it will involve a lot of engagement and consultation. But if we can get to the stage where suds, ponds and swales and things are being incorporated into new developments, that would be a big win for us. And then there's obviously natural flood management as well. As Simon said, there's obviously legislation being needed for it as well. So we can actually go up into the hills and actually store like quite large volumes of water up in the hills. So these are all things that we're looking at. So it's definitely the minister has and to be fair, the Permanent Secretary and the department are fully behind this approach. So.
Good.
Suppose just Chair, thanks. And just to come back on that last point is, while the Living with Water programme is important, and you've also referenced now the three-pronged approach that the Minister has taken in terms of wastewater infrastructure and managing water better going forward.
Mm-hmm.
While the Living with Water programme, both in Belfast and Derry and elsewhere, is important, it shouldn't maybe be viewed either as the silver bullet, because as you say, long before maybe the Living with Water programme comes to fruition and has been implemented, we will have stuff like the SUDS bill and developers taking that on themselves before the department or any water are working through what's within the document in front of us today. So
exactly.
Would you agree with that there will be opportunities for improvement long before maybe we even get to the implementation stage of the Living with Water programme, Derry?
Yes, certainly through the legislation will take some time, as I said, but once that legislation's in place and we get to the stage where there is a requirement for new developments to incorporate these blue-green measures, yes, they will certainly contribute, and that could be that could be in advance of some of the stuff in the plan. Yeah, would you agree, Simon? That's just on that point.
Yeah, I think we need to continually look at this. This is something that is, it's happening all the time. It's happening more regularly, as we all know, and for that we need to continually look at how we manage this. So we need to look at all interventions that are available to us. And as I keep stressing, the DFA Rivers, NI Water and DFA Roads will continue to do their roles, their day-to-day business as usual roles in trying to deal with that. And if we can be of assistance to them, we will work alongside them to try and bring forward the Living with Water approach if that's going to be a benefit, and actually help them to deliver some solutions in problematic areas.
That's great. Thank you both. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, members, for the questions. And I do thank Simon and Stuart for the presentation and for fielding the questions. So very, very much appreciated for making the presentation, tell us the day and taking the questions. And we thank you for your time. And we'll continue now with the rest of the business.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Members, item 7, matters arising from the open minutes held on Wednesday the 12th of February. Is there anything you wish to raise? Nothing. Members, we'll move on then to item 8, which is the Better On Board TransLink Active Travel Charter, and that's Colin to take us through it.
Through you, Chair. This item is regarding Better On Board. It's a TransLink Active Travel Charter. And really it's to provide information to members on TransLink's Better On Board Charter. And it's a new initiative to encourage motor shift away from private cars across the city and district. So TransLink have recently approached us to ask would Council consider signing up to this charter. And the objective of signing up to this charter is basically so that staff would commute more regularly using public transport and therefore reducing our emissions and therefore congestion across the city and district. So there are a number of organisations that have already signed up to this charter, and they're all listed in the item. For example, one of these is Western Trust. Charter is very, very simple, to be quite honest with you. There are about 7 principles, and these include encouraging increased public transport use, communicating the need for change, improving air quality and reducing congestion, making travel information accessible, promoting health and lifestyle benefits, incorporating public transport into sustainability plans, and collaborating with TransLink on future initiatives. So in terms of the benefit of signing up this supports our climate change agenda and also Council's pledge in respect to climate pledge. So what members are asked to do is to approve and support the Better On Board Charter, and that Council become a signatory to this initiative. Thank you.
I have Alderman Middleton wishing to come in on this item. Julie?
Thank you, Chair, for letting me in. Thank you also, Colin, for sharing the report on behalf of the DEP. We welcome the proposal. We're also happy to support the proposal that Council go forward to support and sign up to the TransLink Active Travel Charter. We support the Charter's principles and are behind the initiative. I would like to note, however, as a rural councillor, that often our public transport options are not plentiful. Certainly, if I were to go and try and find a bus stop right now, I'd have to walk for miles if I were not taking my car. Despite this, however, I don't want to sound overly negative, because I think the benefits of this initiative are very positive in terms of our climate and our public health, as well as just generally encouraging less cars on the road, therefore improving road safety. So just wanted to note a few points there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alderman Middleton. Councillor Boggs.
Kermogget, Chair, and in a similar vein to Alderman Middleton, Colin has alluded to the fact that it's a charter for the city and district, but it does reference mainly the city in the paper, and that's kind of in agreeing with Alderman Middleton. Absolutely welcome the charter and anything that will try and help people get out of private cars and onto public transport, not only for, you know, reducing congestion and improving road safety, but also for our climate change targets and meeting net zero and decarbonising how we travel. It's in that vein that I'm disappointed that it is so city-centric, because in anything that the department talks about and TransLink talks about, usually it is, you know, those in rural areas, and you will know this more than anybody, Chair, those in rural areas are the people that will find it most difficult to get out of private car and onto public transport. And here we have a charter that seems to be focusing on those who at the minute probably find it the easiest out of everybody. So it's with that sense of disappointment just that I'm going to ask if council officers have had any engagement with TransLink about how this could be a city and district wide approach rather than city centric, but absolutely not to take away from the good effort that is being made in relation to it, and don't take away from one part of the council area or another, but just to make those points that if we are signing up to it, can we have a conversation with TransLink about how we spread it right across the entire council area? Thanks, Chair.
Chair, I'm happy to take that on board and get the officers to engage with TransLink and bring a response back to members at some point.
Thank you for that, and again concur with the points that have been made by Councillor Boggs and Alderman Middleton. Supportive of the policy, but it's not handy for the like of us in that lower end of the Derg area and across the Sperrin and the Faughan as well. It's not very. It just doesn't work for the rural dweller realistically. But members, I need a proposer and a seconder for that. Minded, yes. I think Alderman, I'm taking Alderman Middle, you were proposing it. I will take Councillor McGinley to second it if that's
Sure. Yeah.
Right, members, we're content enough with item 8. Moving on to item 9 is the dual language street naming policy, and that's Connor.
Yep, thanks, Chair, and members, just bear with me on this one. To seek members or to advise members of the outcome of the consultation of the Council's draft dual language street naming policy and associated draft equality impact assessment report, and to seek, subject to members' comments, approval of the formal consultation report, the updated EQAA, and the dual language street naming policy document as set out in the various appendixes. Under Section 11 of the Local Government Act 1985, powers were given to councils in relation to street names and numbering of buildings, and specifically that a council may erect at or near each end, corner or entrance of any street in its district a nameplate showing the name of that street, and shall express the name of the street in English and may express the name in any other language. Within that, members at the January 2021 meeting of Derry Strabane Council endorsed the following motion. The motion is set out there, members, on page 37. And following from that, the discussion in terms of the current provision for the name of the streets in another language other than English lies within the existing street name and property numbering policy. This policy requires the support of 2/3 of respondents to a consultation of street occupiers before an application to have a dual language sign can be approved. It is noted that in a judicial review of the Belfast City Council's bilingual signage policy in 2014, it was found the council had a residual discretion within the policy to allow for due consideration to be given to the particular circumstances of each application. Analysis of the existing policy implementation indicates that from 2015 to 2021, 108 dual language applications have been approved or progressed to the consultation. Of the consultations carried out up to 2021, which have been completed, 67 in total. The average response from occupiers on the electoral register identified consultation was 46.7%, with 86.7% returning a positive response. There were 66 applications in 2023 and 26 in 2024. In terms of the key issues, an average of circa 26 applications have been processed annually over recent years, meaning that it takes approximately 3 years to deal with the existing requests, albeit that the time may be longer, given the requirement to go to Belfast to extract the detail from the electoral registers. At present, Council has one officer dealing with dual street name applications who undertakes these duties alongside other duties that include street naming, postal numbers, and bus shelters, etc. In line with the commitments of the Council's EQA scheme, the consultation ran for a period of 12 weeks from the 7th of May through to 31st of July. Responses were welcomed from individuals, groups and organisations, including from minority ethnic language groups and Irish Ulster Scots organisations. In total, there were 311 responses to the consultation, comprising 240 email responses, and they were received from individuals who completed an online response form posted by Andram Jorig website. All of these responses used template text and were generally supportive of the revised policy. Online survey responses, there were 135 responses received via the Have Your Say Derry. 6 of these were test responses and were not counted. 65 were non-responses, i.e. no questions answered, and 63 were valid substantive responses. There were 3 organisational responses: the North West Cultural Partnership in association with Brady and District Ulster Scots Development Association, Conor na Gaeilge, and Culture Lanny Cannon. There were 4 individual responses. There were 4, and these have been anonymised for the purposes of this report. And in terms of stakeholder consultation meeting, responses were also recorded at a meeting of the EAOG held on the 15th of May 2024, which was attended by 8 stakeholder participants representing disability, older people, minority, ethnic communities, and the women's sector. 245 or 79% of the 311 responses received were in Irish. All responses have been reviewed and details are set out in the formal consultation report attached as Appendix 1. There were a number of key issues, and these were summarised below and included the impact on community relations and or potential to cause division. Although many of the submissions were supportive of the changes, several responses indicated opposition to the Irish language on street and road signage, citing the potential for negative impacts on people from PUL communities or from unionist backgrounds. It is noted that the aim of the policy is to promote linguistic diversity. The scheme is not primarily focused on the Irish language, but is open to all languages, including Ulster Scots and minority ethnic languages, and the rest of that section sets out the context to that. Financial implications. A number of respondents outlined their opposition to the revised policy on grounds of the potential cost implications. It is noted that the potential financial implications of the scheme will be kept under review as part of the Council annual's rates estimate setting processes. Lowering of the consent threshold to 15%. Although the majority of respondents received were in favour of the decision to lower the threshold, some respondents indicated their opposition, stating that the 15% threshold was too low, dangerous, undemocratic, and or not feasible. One response from the Irish Language Advocacy Organisation, Conor na Gaeilge, suggested that the councils should work towards the more progressive end of the scale as advised by the Council of Europe COMEX monitoring experts, which has recommended a threshold within the 5 to 20% spectrum, and the rest of that section sets out the background to that. Political implications of the policy. Several responses expressed concerns or requested clarification in respect of the following aspects pertaining to the practical operation of the policy, and again provided in Appendix 1. The inclusion of additional information in the final EQA report. A number of additional items of research and information were identified by consultees and recommended for inclusion in the final EQA report. These sources have been added into Section 4 list, as set out again within the report, and as noted in the following section. As has been stated above, it's noted that access to the live electoral register is necessary for the implementation of this policy. And having considered the information collated as part of the consultation process, a formal consultation note has been prepared as Appendix 1, the Equality Impact Assessment Report updated in terms of Appendix 2, and a final policy document prepared in Appendix 3. Whilst there have been no significant changes to the draft policy, it is suggested that it is initially implemented for a period of 6 months and the impacts reviewed. Members would consider if any policy modifications are necessary, and subsequent reviews would take place in line with the rates estimate processes. An equality impact assessment and rural needs impact assessment have been completed, and the policy reflects the use of townland names in rural areas. No significant issues have been identified in respect of climate change. The Council's privacy notice will apply, and a data impact assessment, as necessary, will be undertaken to ensure adequate controls are in place. In terms of the financial, legal, HR, and other issues, at present, a budget of 25,000 has been set aside for street naming, with an average of £8,000 per annum spent on bilingual signage, with the remainder used in terms of Council's obligation with regard to street naming requirements, i.e. just erecting, replacing, renewing signage on a district-wide basis. There's one officer working on bilingual signage applications who undertakes these duties in addition to other duties, which include allocating postal numbering, maintenance and management of bus shelters, and as such is only able to process an average of 26 applications in any 1 year. Should members have an expectation that applications for bilingual signage should be processed and erected more quickly, additional resources will need to be set aside as part of the rates estimate process. This policy facilitates compliance with legislation relating to street naming and the use of the electoral register. Work is ongoing in respect of the consultation processes to improve effectiveness, returns, and ensure data validity and security. It is also noted that a judicial review in respect of the use of language on street name plates in Belfast City Council highlighted that the Council must give genuine attention and thought to the expressed views of the occupiers, but it is still entitled to take into account other lawful considerations affecting its decision. The draft policy allows consideration of additional information relating to the unique circumstances of an application. And therefore, subject to members' comments, members are asked to approve the formal consultation report as Appendix 1, the updated EQAA report as Appendix 2, and the final draft language street naming policy document as Appendix 3. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Conor. Councillor O'Farrell, Anton.
Thanks very much, Cahill. I'm not on the committee, but I would like to speak in this anyway. But while on Falcha, Corrib and Thurs, because it's more egg Sinn Féin, I would like to welcome the report, and Sinn Féin fully support it and are appreciative. But while I'm Maran Wahis, a goal is na Hofigi, a Collier, Asan Thurs. I'd like to thank the officers, the council officers, for bringing the report forward. This will add to the promotion and the revival of the Irish language in our council area. For children, like my own children who go to Irish language schools, it's this visual thing, we need to see it. It's not just for the schools, the Irish language is not just for Gaels calling it, it's for out in the community. And this will be a great addition to all of that. It's an important step in the right direction, and we welcome it wholeheartedly. Thank you very much.
Alderman Muddleton.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me in. Thank you also, Conor, for the update and the report that you shared today. I want to put on record the DUP's opposition to the problematic threshold of 15%. We definitely view this as undemocratic. There are many scenarios to consider, but almost all of them include the risk of excluding residents' valid views as part of the process due to the low threshold. I also feel that in the financial climate that we are in, that resources and finances could be used for the betterment of our residents in other ways not inclusive of dual language street signage. Finally, I would question whether the views of the PUL and Ulster Scots communities have actually been taken on board, as it would appear that whilst they are noted, they just have not been considered. I could not, in due conscience, support this today. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Muddleton. Councillor McGinley.
Good Chair, and Councillor O'Farrell has actually outlined the Sinn Féin position, but as he isn't a member of the committee, I wanted to come in and formally propose the recommendations. Thank the team that have moved this forward from the original motion was brought forward in 2021. It has been a slow process. I think that some of the excuses that we hear are disappointing when people are in opposition to this, but that's for those individuals to consider themselves. I think that this is a positive for everybody, so I'm happy to propose it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McGinley. Next speaker is Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Chair. First thing that comes to my mind is what's wrong with the policy we have? And I ask, has that policy prevented anyone who has put an application in and you know from actually attaining what they desire? The statistics there are showing responses from electors at less than 50%, and then I think the approval rate above that is 87% or something like that there. So, you know, dropping down to 15% as the threshold, I think is extremely dangerous. It would in fact mean in this committee that 2 members of committee could propose something and, you know, that would be acceptable, that would pass. Where's the democracy in that? And I regret to have to say it, there's appear to be some people who are walking along the line of territorial marking in this particular scenario, which is regrettable. If the majority in an area wish to use their particular language on signage, there isn't a problem with that. But if it's a couple of people in a long road that decide they want to do it and they reach the 15%, what about the other 85% there who don't want it? Where does that leave us? As I say, we have a policy which works, which enables street signs to be put in Irish, no application in Ulster Scots yet. But, you know, what's wrong with the policy we have? It's successful, it works. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey. I have 2 more speakers. Councillor Boyle, John.
Thank you, Chair. And I think one of the most important things to remember in relation to the paper that's been presented to us here is that this is actually about the promotion of languages, plural. It's not simply about just one language. Now, of course, myself and my party colleagues are fully supportive of all efforts to promote the Irish language. However, there are opportunities, should people wish to take them, for other languages to be promoted as well. And I think it is important. I think it's important to recognise that the Irish language, because that seems to be what's getting focused on here, is a language that belongs to everyone. I think a language that all of us can share. Not all of us currently speak it. It would be very good if we all could. So, in short, Chair, we're again fully supportive of the paper that's in front of us. And I note that there was a proposer. I am content to be the seconder to support this on behalf of the SDLP, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Boyle. Councillor Riley, Martin.
Thanks, Chair. No, I was just going to say the same as Councillor Boyle. Happy to second the proposal on behalf of the SDLP, but Councillor Boyle eloquently outlined our position, so I'll leave it there, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. Or whoever wishes, I have a few questions just in regards to the paper that's there. It was the state, surprise, which I always ask a few questions, but in regards to just a confirmation, and I do note that Ellen's on the call there, in regards to the language applications, the only language that has officially been applied for has been the Irish language, isn't that correct? There was talk that there had been an application potentially under Polish, but then that was withdrawn, or maybe I'm wrong in that regard. So there's a list of questions here, so I'll ask them, and whoever wishes to answer them. In regards to you have touched again on the budget element of things in regards to the cost of it. Do we have a ballpark figure per cost per road? it's just trying to get, you had stated there was an £8,000 figure was really set aside for erecting of the signs, and I'm just wondering per road the cost of that. Following on from that, I was just querying in regards to the applications. Did the applications drop in 24? Because according to the figures there, the applications, there were 66 applications in 23 and we were down to 26 in 24, but it was stated in the presentation was that the officer could only go through 26 in a year. So I'm just not sure, is that the figure, where I've picked that figure up exactly from. Another couple of wee quick points there. 15% is an issue. As I say, if it was at least the 50%, I would, but the 15% is too low in my view. In regards to 7.7 of the paper, it notes it'll take on board considerations in regards to non-residential occupiers. And I'm mindful, particularly in towns whereby you will have the ratepayers who you will have their businesses in certain areas. And I'm just wondering, they may not live in that area, and it's how much weight will be put into them in regards to an application for any language. And then my three final wee points there. It was raised at the time when we did have, 3.3 in the paper there raises 240 responses using template text. Now, I'm just querying in regards to that there. 240 out of the 311 responses, that 77% of our consultation was a copy and paste job. I mean, that's my reading of that, but maybe I've picked that up incorrectly. You know, that is, you know, so I'm just a wee bit of clarification on that. And then my two final points. I do feel the policy should have an element in it that the councillors in their DEAs are notified when an application comes in. We only hear about it when it comes after the event, when it's brought before the ENR committee. And again, those that don't sit on the environment regeneration then don't see that unless they're looking through the papers. So I'm just minded, I'd requested that before and it wasn't brought on, that when the consultation goes out to the road, that even an email is sent to the local councillors in that DA to say such and such a road has been applied for in whatever language it is. And my last one there, and I raised at the time of the consultation and the Guildhall, I do believe, there was no mechanism, and as I say, in regards to return to a sole language if it was required. You know, there's no, you know, we've mentioned about demographic changes and there are those that request in languages, and it could well be an Irish language or it could be a Polish language, could be any language. We have a sizable number now, and Alderman Hussel be aware of Sri Lankans in certain areas of Castledeck. So you know there could be any languages then which are requested, but there's no mechanism even in the policy to return. The only response I got to that would be deemed as a backward step, but it wasn't. There wasn't a mechanism, even if it's not used, there's no mechanism in place. So there's a number of those wee points that were raised at the time and I didn't get an answer from them. So it's just, as I say, I do take on board those may not well be able to answer it today, but it is the case if a response could, if some sort of response could come today, but if a response can be brought before full council or even at full council. Thank you very much. Conor, I know there's a lot in that.
Chair, I'm happy to deal with a couple of them that I can deal with, and Evelyn, I know she's online if she's able to, but it may well be able to come back to members of full council. I believe there was one application that came forward for another language, but that didn't progress at the time. It wasn't, if you want, followed up through and sustained. In terms of your third point, which was our second point was the cost per road, we had provided that previously by DA, and I'm happy to recirculate that information again. In terms of the number of applications, they have dropped off, but I think that's in anticipation of this policy coming into effect. And I think that once that happens, we would expect to see a rise in the number of applications that come forward. There's some of the other issues, as you say, were discussed, and I think ultimately there is discretion within the committee to consider the views of non-residents and other occupiers, as in businesses and so on. And again, that was discussed through the working group and comments provided, so that members would have some discretion, or a discretion, to consider those views in terms of the, I suppose, the wider community good. I know that the report sets out the responses received. in terms of, there was the email responses and the text, and again, maybe if Ellen wants to comment on that. And again, we can, certainly it's an operational issue in terms of we can notify members where applications come in terms of their respective DAs, and I can agree that with the officer who deals with the process. And again, I think that there was some discussion around the process for dealing with where changes may or may not be permitted or possible within the legislation and within the policy. But again, if Ellen's online, she may want to come with this in further detail on 2 of those points anyway.
Do you please have that comment?
Yeah, through you, Chair. Just want to comment on a couple of them. Obviously, Connor's dealt with the operational matters, but I would confirm, as I say, within the process and the policy, that the views of non-residential members can be taken into consideration when members are actually considering the consultation results, although as indicated in the policy, it doesn't contribute towards the 15% threshold in terms of the decision making. I would advise that in terms of the responses, you indicate there were 240 of them did come through with standardized responses, although I would advise members that these responses were sent in by individuals. So therefore, as I say, they were identified people who responded with those responses. And also in terms of the mechanism to return to a sole language, it was, as I say, discussed at the working group, and I think officers were very mindful of the resource implications in terms of this particular policy, and hence the provision within the policy is that we would not consider for a 10-year period a signing of a street, because that reflects roughly the lifespan of what we expect the signage to last. So again, it was probably in the context of resource maximisation that was put in the policy. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I note that the question still wasn't answered, but it wasn't answered at the Guildhall the last time either. But that's for another day. Members, that has been proposed by Councillor McGinley and seconded by Councillor Boyle. I imagine you may take us through a vote on this one, Connor.
Okay, thanks, Chair. Alderman Hussey.
Against.
Alderman Kerrigan.
Against, Connor.
Alderman Middleton.
Against, Connor.
Councillor Boggs.
Ta.
Councillor Boyle.
For. Ta.
Councillor Deeney.
Ta.
Councillor Duffy. Okay. Councillor Fleming.
Ta.
Councillor McGinley.
Ta.
Councillor McHugh.
Ta.
Councillor Murphy.
Ta.
Councillor Norris. Councillor Riley.
Ta.
And Councillor Tierney is absent. Chair, that's 9 for and 3 against.
Thank you, members. That item is passed. Item 10 is the street naming and property numbering request for development, and that is Connor.
Thanks, Chair. Again, to advise and seek members' consent with regard to the naming of the development at H2 Lands, Buncrana Road, Derry. Council has received a street naming application in respect of a name for the following development, Maple Glen. Section 3 of the report sets out the background to the development and the basis for the name, and the recommendation in front of members is therefore to approve the adoption of the name Maple Glen for the housing development at H2 Lands, Buncrana Road. Thanks.
Members, anyone wish to pass comment or do you have a proposer or second or in regards to that?
I'll propose, Chair.
Propose, Councillor McGinley.
Happy to second, Chair.
Alderman.
No, not seconding, Chair.
All right.
A quick query. In view of the last discussion, have we ever had an application for a new street in a language other than English, or does the application have to be in English? And if that is the case and the signage is put up, does the 10-year exclusion then apply because the sign's been put up?
Chair, I'm not aware of an application coming in requesting a dual naming at the naming of a development. And I can't answer the second part of that query at this point in time, but we'll get the information and come back to you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I will have to thank you.
Chair, Councillor
Yes,
Boyle.
Councillor Boyle, you'd second that item?
Well, I'm going to second it, but I'm going to make one further observation as well.
That's grand.
We're in this case, for example, we're talking about a new development. There possibly at this point there's no one to consult with who lives in it. So, you know, I think that's an academic question that Alderman Hussey's asking. So, I think he's just being awkward, Chair, to be quite frank. But as I said, I'll second the proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Boyle. And we could not comment if Alderman Hussey's been awkward or not. We'll pass no comment on that. Proposed by Councillor McGinley, seconded by Councillor Boyle, and that item, members, and even I don't see any opposition to it. Item 11, UK Emissions Trading Scheme Consultation, and that's Colin.
Thank you, Chair. This item is about the UK Emissions Trading Scheme, and what members are asked is to consider a response that's contained within Appendix 1 and a number of questions that are being proposed on the consultation on this trading scheme. So what is the UK Emissions Trading Scheme? This is jointly run by UK Emission Trading Authority, and it's made up of various different governments across the regions. And from a Northern Ireland perspective, that would be DERA. What it's called it's called a cap and trade scheme, and it sets out the overall limit of emissions for the sectors covered in the schemes. And the objective of this is to look at a downward trajectory of these emissions with a view to hitting UK climate targets. So the key issues here as part of the consultation are the current scheme runs to 2030, and the UK Trading Emission Authority would like to extend that for a longer period up to 2050. And they would like to see views on that. In addition to that, what they'd like to do is they've asked 3 different questions, that are contained in the consultation response, which we fed back to. And they're quite short questions. And the first one is about extending into a second phase onwards. And our response is that yes. And then the second question is, well, how long should this extended phase be? And the answer that we're proposing is for up to 10 years, to allow for consistency. And then the third question they've allowed is between phase 1 and phase 2 of this scheme, can emissions be banked? So can they be carried from one scheme forward on to the next? It's quite a technical consultation if you look at it, but the questions or the responses, the answers are quite simple, to be quite honest with you. As it's a consultation, we would need to get back to DERA by the 9th of April. And in terms of the implications of this is a good thing, obviously because it supports Council's climate pledge and the agenda. And what we would do is we would seek members' endorsement of the responses to 3 different questions that have been posed in Appendix 1 of the consultation response. Thank you, Chair.
Does anyone wish to pass comment, or does anyone wish to propose or second this item? Councillor Fremont, proposed. Councillor McHugh seconded there. We're content on item 11, members? Yes, I don't see anyone speaking against it. Members, we'll move on. We are going to bring forward item 17 out of open for information because we do have a decision to make on that. So item 17 will be dealt with next, and that's a budget update, festival lighting and vandalism to artificial Christmas trees. And that's going to be Connor speaking on that. I would need a decision.
Okay, thanks, Chair. And again, to seek members' approval with regard to approve an additional expenditure required to cover the costs associated with the damage to festive illuminations across the city and district during the Christmas period. Members will be aware of the extensive festival lighting illuminations erected across the city and district, and in particular the artificial trees erected in Derry City Centre, Ebrington, Strabane Town Centre, Let the Dance Begin and Castlederg. The trees have generated many positive comments and reactions both locally and beyond, and enhanced the extensive lighting programme across the city and district. Members will be aware of several reported instances of vandalism to the trees, with the trees in Guildhall Square and Waterloo Place particularly targeted over the period. Repairs were undertaken at all of the trees during the period, with the contractor submitting a number of invoices for repairs as detailed within Appendix 1. The trees at Waterloo Place, Guildhall and Strabane Town Centre suffered the most damage, with bills of 16,394, 15,578 and £8,704 respectively, which damage to the Ebrington and Castlederg trees was 2,782 and 1,817 respectively. The total amount sought by the contractor with regard to the vandalism is therefore £45,274 plus VAT. Netting had been installed as a deterrent on the Guildhall and Waterloo Place trees, and whilst this reduced the vandalism impact on the lower reaches of these trees, significant damage arose from those climbing higher up on all of the trees. The officer team will look to review and improve deterrence on all of the trees in conjunction with the supplier, while seeking to negate the visual impacts of these measures on the presentation of the trees. Members will also recall committee item ER 26024 tender report festive lighting, setting out the outcome of a tender evaluation process with regard to the erection and takedown of lighting for the 24-25 period. The report advised that the tender returns had come back at circa 100,000 above what had been allocated within the festive lighting budget, and asking that members approve allocating up to 100,000 from in-year savings to offset this cost. And this was subsequently approved at full council C47824, and on the basis that officers would seek to agree cost reductions with the contractors, and that installation and removal of a number of the lots would be undertaken by the in-house team. In discussion with the contractors, officers agreed a 10% reduction on the tendered lots, with the in-house team undertaking installation and removal of 2 of the lots. Through discussions with the contractors, the rates tendered for lots 1, 2 and 5 were reduced by 10%, with reductions of £4,298, £4,988 and £4,500 respectively, with the tender sum reduced from £179,348 to £165,561, representing a saving of £13,786. As advised, Council's in-house team undertook the installation, maintenance and takedown of lighting for lots 3 and 4, realising savings of £3,404 and £18,580 on the tendered rates, reducing the total combined cost for these 2 lots from £62,794 to £40,810, providing a saving of £21,983. The combined saving achieved totaled £37,690. The figures reduces the additional ask of council from 100,000 to 62,310, albeit that the remaining sum will now be required to offset the cost of vandalism, as highlighted above. A similar volume of vandalism had been recorded previously with the 21-22 year, with the sum of £47,448 plus VAT. And whilst additional budget provision had been made with regard to festive lighting, members' consent is required in terms of approving this level of unplanned spend from the £100,000 previously agreed by council. Additional provision of £75,000 has been included in this year's rate assessment process to offset increases in delivering the service and to allow for additional installations that members may wish to take forward. Given the above, however, it would be prudent to set aside £40,000 of this to cover vandalism costs should deterrence not reduce the volume of damage sustained in consideration of the above. And therefore, members' comments and recommendations with regard to approval a payment of £45,274 plus VAT in respect of the invoices raised for the vandalism of the trees as detailed above. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Conor. Councillor McGinley, Emma.
Good Chair, and thank you, Conor, for the report. I'm disgusted that we're being asked to approve £45,000 to cover vandalism to Christmas trees. I mean, those people who go out and decide to ruin things that other people really, really enjoy just really want to catch themselves on, to be honest, because it's a disgrace. I have a couple of questions, Conor. Obviously, the invoices have been placed with us, so we sort of have to pay them. It's, you know, it's essentially a formality, but in terms of the invoices that are in the pack, and this might be a wee bit naive of me because I don't know, but when it refers to the things like the carpet, what does that mean? You know, what has been damaged that's costing £5, £8, £3 and £200 to repair? I just don't understand it, so I'd like to get a wee bit of detail on it. And then as well as that, you know, in terms of moving forward, it's highlighted in the report there that we had a similar ask for vandalism in 21-22 of 47,000. You know, it's really, really high. I don't think it's the best use of repairs money, but that's down to the people who have taken the decision, as I say, to go and vandalise things that other people really enjoy. But if I get an answer to that, we will propose the recommendation, as it's a bill that we have that, you know, we would have to pay. But just in terms of those questions and moving forward, is there anything that can be done further to offset this so we're not sitting next year with the same question being asked of us?
Chair, the carpets would be used that the trees would sit on, so they would be pulled at the bottom. So it's to provide that green, if you want, setting on the bottom. So that would relate to that. And obviously the other items, the bubbles are the balls. And I know that there were a number of videos circulating on social media, and you can hear the balls falling off and smashing, the bubbles falling off as people are going up. And you can see the cost of them there. So it is quite extensive. Again, where we're using the LED lights, and that's where most of them are LED lights. You break the chain, and essentially you're replacing the entire string of lights. So it is disappointing in that sense. We had trialed, and it was successful in terms of the netting at lower levels. So we're going to extend that in discussion with the provider up to 5 or 10 meters above the current levels, and it'll not be a full. If someone wants to get onto the tree, they're going to get up the tree. But it will act as a deterrent, and we hope that the message goes out that this isn't. There's nothing free about this. This isn't fun. This is £45,000 of ratepayers' money that has to be found to cover the cost of this. And I'm sure, as members have expressed, there are better uses for this kind of money. So we will work with the contractor. We'll look at reducing this where we can, but the call needs to go out that this is unacceptable.
Sorry, just one more we follow on. In terms of, as you referenced there has been videos on social media. Has there been any follow-up where it's been reported to the police or any criminal follow-up? Because those people could be held accountable and be made foot some of this bill at the very least.
Yeah, Chair. The PSNI have identified a number of individuals, and we have been engaging with them on that process.
Thank you. Councillor Boyle, John.
Thank you, Chair. I think a lot of what I wanted to say has been said, but I think I want to, on behalf of my own party, reflect the fact that I do believe it's a crying shame that we are sitting debating about paying a bill that we really shouldn't and don't want to have to be footing because of the actions of some people, and obviously a minority of people, and people who simply can't leave things alone. And the reality of it is that when people behave in this manner, this is why other people can't have nice things, because they come at a cost. I have to say, I think some of the mitigations that were put in place in the Christmas just gone by, certainly the netting around the foot of the tree and the Guildhall Square, I certainly noticed that at Waterloo Place. I think they perhaps did go some way to mitigating it, but I did even observe myself that perhaps it needed to go up a little bit further. And one further observation, and it should be something that's very, very obvious, it's extremely dangerous for any individual to be climbing structures of the heights of the trees that we have. I mean, it's just beyond crazy. If you fall from that height, you could do yourself some very, very serious damage or worse. So it is a bill we have to pay. I obviously we don't want to have to do it again next year, and I think it is important that the message goes out to people to please just leave these things alone and let everybody have nice things. But certainly on behalf of the SDLP, happy to second the proposal, Chair.
Thank you very much for your comments, Councillor Boyle. Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Chair, and totally concur with all of the previous remarks and support. I mean, there's a bill there, it has to be paid, end of story. But I presume I'm condemn the destruction that has occurred on the festive items that have been provided throughout the council area. Couple of issues. How much does a tree actually cost? When I look at damage repair there, 16,000, 15,000, I'm wondering how much does the actual tree cost for starters? I'm also wondering going forward, Waterloo Place and the Guildhall Square, what's the distance between the two? And if we're providing a corporate tree, is there a need for two corporate trees in such close proximity? I mean, what are we talking, 20, 30 meters? I don't know the distance. I think that has to be questioned going forward as well. The increased use of the netting, totally support that, but that sort of damage is absolutely horrendous, and as has been rightly pointed out, prevents other provision that we as a council should be and could be providing throughout the area. Thank you, Chair.
I'm glad you've raised that in Staban, Alderman, Jose, not in the Guildhall chamber. But yes, it was one to be raised. Conor.
Chair, there was a report came before members previously where we had done an exercise. We leased the trees from the provider and we had done a cost benefit analysis back then. So the lease of the trees, obviously not including the vandalism, was cost effective at that time. But again, I would have to go back to that report to give you the details on that. But we had looked at this over 10 years and it was considered there was a benefit in bringing in artificial trees, as well as that we weren't then cutting down large trees to bring in for a period of time. So there was a sustainability element to this as well. But I can get you the figures, but I don't have them to hand. In terms of the Waterloo Place versus Guildhall, it had always been the case that there had been two trees. Waterloo Place was seen as a key business district as well. It's the large square, and the tree had been there for years, and it was just a continuation of that process.
Thank you. Alderman Middleton.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me in, and thank you, Conor, for the really saddening report. I mean, to say that I'm deeply disappointed or our party's deeply disappointed would be a huge understatement. I would go as far to say, and it's something I don't say very often, just really angry. And I'm angry on behalf of every single one of our rates payers. In my area, there are people who struggle to pay their rates, and we're having to foot this out because of the actions of a small minority of really thoughtless and careless and irresponsible people who have just decided to rob some joy and, quite frankly, rob some rates money off our council. So it's really shameful, and I'm sorry it's happened. I really hope that it won't happen again. But look, just acknowledge the very hard work, Conor, that you and the whole team put into making Christmas special for our district. And I'm just sorry that this disrespect has happened. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Middleton. Councillor McHugh, right?
Thanks, Chair. No, I was just going to say that reference the report that Conor mentioned there. I'm pretty sure from my own recollection that the tree in Castledare was 15,000. And I'm sure some of the bigger trees are obviously more than that. Like, then again, the one in Castledare is probably the nicest one of the lot.
Here. Well, it is, Councillor McHugh. There are a lot of very positive comments in regards to those trees. There has been genuinely there's been a lot of positive comments in regards to the trees, and it was a wee question. The cost that there is involved in regards to the sites there and the vandalism there, and it is really disappointing to see that. And it was, but Councillor McGinley has touched on it there in regards to any prosecutions taking place, because I'm assuming there's quite a number of cameras in that area around Guildhall and Waterloo Place. I'm just querying there are 3 trees in that location. There's a tree in front of the Guildhall and a tree in the square there, and then there's a tree in Waterloo Place. Isn't there 3 in that location? And I was just wondering, is there 2 there? Just the 2 now? I thought there's 3. No, all right, sorry, that's all right to stand to be corrected. You had number 4, because someone had told me there was a shortage of trees in the water side, but I don't know. I'll leave that to Councillor Deeney if she says maybe there's not. There's one in Everton. Well, maybe you're happy enough with 1 tree. That's all right. That's all right. But to say the comments then in regards to the 2 trees in the close proximity were a wee bit was something to consider. But all I say was to
just a very brief point. I mean, how much would it cost to actually put a night watchman in situ on a tree? Would it cost less than 15 or 16,000 quid?
It's the location and how long they're up for as well. And that's when the vandalism takes place and the other. So no, that item has been proposed, members, by Councillor McGinley and seconded by Councillor Boyle. It's a bill, sadly, we have to pay. And do have to say, which maybe missed in that report, well done to the staff and to Conor there in regards to the savings, because I mean, obviously at the start we were told an additional 100,000 and that has been reduced significantly. It's just disappointing. It's all been ate up now with the vandalism. But I do thank the staff for the work that did take place, because we were over a barrel with those prices previous. But members, that's item 17. We're content enough in that regard. Remember, the following items are open for information, and I will run through them. And if you wish to raise the item, shout or indicate. Item 12 is the bulletin control applications. wishes to speak. Item 13 is proposed disabled parking bays across the city and district. Item 14 is the Maboy update.
Chair, just to update members on that, we've been advised that the sentencing hearing has now been listed for the 8th of April.
Alderman Middleton on item 14.
Thanks, Chair, for letting me in, and thanks for that update, Connor. I just like to mention my boy every single time because I think we need to keep it on the radar, and I know certainly we are doing that in this chamber and in this way. But I just again want to mention that we just need to really remember those that are surrounding the area. We need to keep checking their water, and we need to really keep checking, our native plants. It's just such a travesty. So no, thank you. That's all I wanted to add today.
Thank you, Councillor Norris.
Same as really as Alderman Middleton. Just a positive note that we're getting now the public consultation, and hopefully the money will be allocated by the Minister and to get the final solution to get this sorted out once and for all. We've talked about it long enough. Time to get it sorted. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Norris. Item 15 is the flooding issues update. Councillor Boggs.
It's just in relation to, and Connor will know that I have been in touch with officers about this regularly. There's a letter there in relation to sandbags from the department and the provision of them during severe weather events. And I know at the last series of flooding, particularly in Strabane, I can't talk for all areas, but in Strabane we were able to get sandbags out on the areas pretty quickly, and as a positive of our approach and our resilience to ongoing weather events. There is an issue with where they go when the event is over. And from the correspondence that I've had so far from council officers, it is, that we don't necessarily have either a responsibility nor the resource or the manpower to collect them all. And I think that's an issue we need to look at going forward as part of our resilience efforts. We probably don't have the manpower to be going and cutting down all the trees and clearing walkways that we have to go and do, but we have to do it because we have a responsibility that people can use them. And I don't see any difference when it comes to sandbags, because if we are treating them as then a household waste that people can dispose of at our recycling centres, then we're taking the responsibility of disposing of them. We're just not taking the responsibility of collecting them. But I have a particular street within my own DA where there's now a collection of 3 times of sandbags, because it is either elderly people who don't have access to their own vehicle to take those things away, and quite frankly, people who necessarily may not have the money to pay for a waste collector to come and take them for them and take them away. Also, as we all know from storms and all the rest, it can be raw sewage that is coming and flood water. It can, there is then the issue, the environmental health issue then of is there vermin running about these sandbags while they're lying in piles and streets. And I know for one, I wouldn't want to put that in the back of my car, so I don't expect that we should be asking anybody else to do it. So I want to just make a short proposal, Chair, if you don't mind, that officers go away and either engage with the department, or that we look at our own internal resilience in terms of storm events and flooding events and how we can assist our residents to get those cleared away as quickly as possible afterwards, because the other thing about them is they're no good after one use. I mean, I think we can all, I can anyway think of times where I've had to tell residents, so after that has been soaked in flood water, you need to get rid of it because it's not acting as a barrier anymore. People think they put these things here and they can keep them there forever. And I think that's also important to note as well. So it's just if officers can go away and look at our own resilience efforts and how we could maybe look at collecting ones that are out there at the minute, and then also adding it on the future events as well. Thanks, Chair.
You have 2 more speakers, Alderman Middleton and then Alderman Hussey. Julie.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me in. I'm happy to second Councillor Boggs' proposal if needs be. I think any efforts that we can put towards assisting our residents district-wide with any aspect of flooding is welcome. So if we can maybe have a report back or some information back on how we can tackle that, that would be most welcome. And I only really wanted to touch and I speak on flooding every time, and I'm really grateful it's on the agenda. Obviously, we have severe issues in Eglinton and Drumahoe and other areas across the district, but I have increasingly noticed noticed a lot of really bad surface water flooding, particularly in the likes of Trench Road, Cowley. It's the same spots every time, but the people who live nearby are again living in fear because the water's building up on the road. Now there's a major road safety issue on Trench Road. There's 2 spots there, and I just wanted to highlight and have it that we've spoken about it and it's on the agenda for all of us, that we do have a road safety issue because of our drainage infrastructure and because of the ongoing issues that we have with flooding. We're always going to have rain, so it's definitely something that we just need to keep on talking about and keep on focusing on. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Middleton. Alderman Hussey.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Totally content to endorse, would have seconded Councillor Boggs' proposal, and he quite rightly highlights the issue of, they are a one-use item, and once used, they are contaminated, and therefore they have to be disposed of. So it's an excellent proposal, and congratulations on the proposal, Councillor Boggs.
Yeah, Chair, we'll bring a report back in due course in consultation with the relevant agencies and other councils.
Thank you, members. Thank you, members. Item 16 is the Brown Bill rollout, and we do have, I'll let Alderman Hussey raise the road. It's not on the.
No, I'll let you raise a road. You're probably talking about the Lyle Road, but that's the 2 of us raising that particular road. Can I say that I welcome light at the end of the tunnel? It's been a long time, but I welcome that we've got a timeline and completion before I would imagine the end of April, and thank all of the team for that, Chair.
Alderman Middleton and then Councillor Norris. Julie.
Thanks, Chair, for letting me in. I just wanted to put on record really sincere and actually joyful thanks to Connor and the whole team for your endeavours in rolling these brown bins out. They've genuinely changed. I'm not exaggerating, changed the lives of many of the rural residents I represent, and that they're not having to make like maybe a 14-mile round journey to dispose of like grass waste or tree waste and the likes of that. I regularly get thanks for that, so I wanted to pass that on to the team that delivered on it, and I'm sure now with the success that you have had that there'll be no time in rolling the rest of them out, so thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Alderman Middleton. Councillor Norris.
Again, I'd just like to thank the team from the SDLP as well. Like from a rural point of view, like people think about the bin, but it's so important, to the people, and it does change people's lives, and very much a more important thing is it's the savings that we get across it as well. People don't realise the amount it is to empty a black bin and the saving that goes on the being able to put food waste, to be able to put grass under that brown bin is saving the rates and etc. So thank you.
Much appreciated. Item 16. Do you want to comment? No.
Well, just Chair, the list will have been updated since the report came in, and the additional bins will have been rolled out. And we do expect that we're going to miss some here and there. And if members contact us directly, we'll ensure that we accommodate them. As good as the crews are, I'll miss someone somewhere along the line, but be assured that if we get the word, we'll ensure they have a bin and a bin collection.
Much appreciated. Item 18, members, the comms funding application. Does anyone wish to speak? No. Item 19, household waste composition analysis project overview. Oh, it's all right. Item 20, shared island initiative, shared biodiversity. Councillor Delaney.
It was just to really commend the programme, as it sounds like it's going to be very interesting. I understand the importance of educating our younger pupils on biodiversity and actively getting them involved in a shared biodiversity initiative. And I'm just glad that we all know that biodiversity does not stop at the border. So,
Thank you very much, Caitlin. No other wants to speak. Members, I'll take a proposer and seconder to become confidential. Councillor McGinley, Councillor Norris, just the first 2 I saw.